Hello.
Hello, and welcome everyone who's here with us, joining us live on TBQ Live, or indeed if you're here to listen to a recording or watch a recording. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time and thank you for your comments. Absolutely delighted and wonderful to welcome all of you here. I'm here today with a wonderful person. My name is Reena Dayal. I'm one of the coaches who hosts TBQ Live. I'm a leadership accelerator, and today I'm delighted to be joined by
Maria Chase. I am a neuro leadership coach, all things concerning the brain.
Absolutely fantastic. So, you have today with you two wonderful people, I presume, who are going to take you through a conversation that is so important for all of us. It's all about creating new habits, and actually, we're going to touch upon healthy eating habits today. And why is it that we're talking about this topic, which is actually part two of a two-part series? We did one last week, which is about creating healthy eating habits. Why are we talking about it? I will have to tell you a little bit about TBQ Live before we get into today's conversation and tell you all of the science and art behind this very, very important subject. So, what is TBQ Live? TBQ Live, TBQ, is actually the initials of a book called The Brilliance Quotient. This was written about 3 years ago with the help of 20 experts, Maria being one of them, and it covers nine levers that helps leaders have something known as effortless leadership in a world that is unpredictable. And we are living in unpredictable times. And I was very curious to see what's the science and art of leadership. And hence, I worked with 20 plus experts to write this book. This entire series called TBQ Live is based on the nine levers. Today, we are talking about one of those nine levers. And in a way, it spans across some of the other ones, because when you're creating new habits, which will bring about breakthrough results, it pretty much works across the nine levers. But the one that we are focusing on is all about aligning your body. Because if it is really important for you to be able to win the game of leadership, to really master the science and art of leadership, you need to be in absolute A form, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. But aligning your body is about the physical element. And that's fundamentally important, we know, in today's world whereby we are having so many issues and problems. So, what did we do last time? Very quickly, we actually decoupled and went into the topic of fitness and health. And we stripped away the layers and we went to the neuroscience, as well as we picked up concepts from an ancient wisdom of Ayurveda to define fitness and health, so that as we sort of talk about knowledge is power, so that we are all aware about what is it that we're dealing with. So this is not a diet program. This is not a diet session. It's really talking and helping unpack some of the layers behind this very broad topic of fitness and health. Now, Maria and I run a fitness program. As I said, we are not coaches that are going to get you into the cardio or get you into eating habits until unless you choose those are important for you. But we think fitness really kind of goes across the four layers of job fitness, career fitness, personal fitness, and life fitness. All of them, there are elements behind it. In personal fitness, we talk about physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And in this two-part series, we went even deeper into the topic of physical fitness and the whole conversation about food. So today we're going to talk about creating new habits. Let me hand over to Maria, who's going to take you a little bit on the neuroscience of creating healthy eating habits. Maria, over to
Mm.
you.
Thank you so much, Rena. I'm so excited about this subject because it's really close to my heart. There's a lot of mythology around food. However, what's worth realizing is the brain was developed and evolved to move us away from threat and towards reward. So the brain's first job is always to move us. Everything else is secondary. And food is always treated as a reward because it's essential fuel. Obviously, we need food. In actual fact, we can only last between 1 and 2 months if we do not eat. And that depends on your weight. It depends on your metabolism. They actually have only done the research around observing people on hunger strikes is between 41 days and 66 days that we can last without food. So we all know food as fuel is absolutely essential. But food is also social and emotional nourishment, because we don't just work and operate on one level. We are multi-layered, and our social context, and in a pandemic, we've all really felt how important being social, being close to people is, as well as our emotional nourishment. So food not only fuels us, but when we sit together and eat together, it also fuels us and nourishes us emotionally and socially. So when we're all sat at the table enjoying food together, we're releasing serotonin, which is that feel good, really great hormone that makes us feel very, very happy. 80% of serotonin is produced in our gut. So that connection, the gut connection between how we feel and what we're doing and what we're eating is huge, as well as the emotional connections that we have with people. That's oxytocin. That's how we feel connected with the people around us. So food's not just about what we eat. It's also how we eat, when we eat, and with whom we eat. Okay. So if we go on to the next slide, we are the perfect design. And why are we the perfect design? Because we can suspend the feeling of being full so that we can take as much or as little as there is. This is evolution. It means what's the availability? What's the accessibility? Just because there's a whole bunch of buffalo over there doesn't mean to say that I can necessarily get one. So our body is designed to suspend feeling full. It's actually leptin is the hormone. It stops you feeling, it stops the release of leptin so that you can respond to famine or feast. If there's a huge amount of resources, food resources available, so for example in the summer when there's fruit everywhere, we can actually eat as much sugar, and that's a really important one. We can eat as much sugar as there is, because in nature fruit only happens once a year. It's the same for fat. We can take in as much fat as possible, because actually that is such a super high nourishment, quality of nourishment. So the fact that we can actually respond to our environment means that we are able to eat as much as possible and stretch our stomachs, as well as survive on a small amount during that time when there's famine. And what's really important and interesting to note is our biology, our brain, and our physiology has not caught up with the fact that I may have a supermarket at the end of my road. According to my body, it's either going to be famine or it's going to be feast. The brain is there to survive you. So therefore, it's very, very black and white. And therein lies the problem. If we go to the next slide, please, Rena. One of the things that we're not necessarily aware of is actually when all of these wonderful and awesome systems were developed, as we were in our primal phase of development, there wasn't a great deal of clean water. In fact, clean water was quite difficult to find. So actually, very often we will eat because we're looking to take water out of the food that we're intaking. So if we want to get on top of our eating, because our bodies have not caught up with the fact that we have unlimited calorific value around us all of the time. Okay. So if you want to start managing and looking and becoming aware of how you eat, the first thing to do is when you feel hungry, check out if you're thirsty. As I said, our stomachs can shrink or stretch. Portion size. It is no surprise that an American plate is almost twice as big as a French plate. That sounds odd, but that's how much food they put on. In America, the latest percentages are basically 300,000 people die per annum in America due to obesity-related illnesses and conditions. So how we eat and the size of what we eat makes a huge difference, because we can stretch our stomach, but we also have the capacity to shrink our stomach by eating much smaller portions on a regular basis. And it's also about eating when you're hungry. There is the social convention now, especially 3 meals a day, breakfast being the most important. In actual fact, there's a huge amount of research that says not eating when you first wake up allows your whole system to wake up. Eating is a very energetic process. Digesting takes a great deal of energy. So it's really important to know that actually you don't have to eat when you feel that you want, when people say, right, have breakfast, have lunch, have dinner. In actual fact, eat when you feel that you want to eat. And if you're looking for that social and emotional connection, you can sit with your friends and family and just drink water. You don't always have to eat. We have this we're biologically programmed to eat. Of course we are. It keeps us alive, but we can consciously raise above that. The last point I want to make on this slide is, what are we hungry for? If food also gives us that social connection, it gives us that emotional nourishment. We know that people eat for emotional reasons, not necessarily because they need energy, not necessarily because they need the fuel of food, but they need the pleasurable aspect of food, that connection with something. And because food's always a reward, it is always pleasurable. It's really important to realize that actually nowadays the diet industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. But actually the word diet came from the Greek, which is lifestyle. So it's not just about what you eat. It's how you live. It's what exercise you do. It's how you feel. It's your social connections. So that's why Rena and I were very clear on not making this a diet session, because actually diet means lifestyle. We're looking at fit for purpose in your job, how you eat, in your exercise regime, how you socialize. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of diets out there. I would suggest, like we did with the exercise one, choose what you like, choose what works for you, and then create that new habit. Obesity is growing in a world which is, I find it weird that we have never been more developed. We've never been richer, but we've never been bigger. I don't want to say fat, because that we all have fat. It's how full those cells are. In a world that is so advanced, our eating needs to catch up, and our biology and our physiology hasn't yet. So how can we change it? Well, we can use the amazing and awesome capacity of the brain, which is to actually make new connections, neuroplasticity. Let's go and look at what neuroplasticity means. If we can look at that next slide, Rena. Okay, neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to make new connections. And in actual fact, you are making new neural connections all of the time. Yeah, you walk down a new street, you're making a new neural connection of that map in your brain. You learn something new, you're making a new neural connection. So neuroplasticity happens all of the time when we are presented with new information. We get 34 gigabytes of information per day. We're getting new information in all the time. So this capacity is something that we can leverage if we want to make new habits, because a habit is a neural pathway that you go down. If you want to create a new habit that serves you better, you layer that new neural connection on top. What you need, though, is to bring it into your awareness. We are 95% unaware, because I don't need to be managing what my pancreas does. I need to be getting on with my life. Also, there's a huge amount of stuff, a huge amount of our behaviors, our feelings, and our thoughts that are activated unconsciously. Consciousness is a very energetic process. The brain is very good at keeping energy, because it doesn't know where the next meal or the next input of energy is coming from. So to create a new habit, you need to have intention. What are you going to do? That brings it into the PFC, the smallest, brightest, brilliant part of the brain that allows us to be aware. We're aware of being aware in our PFC. So by bringing the desire to have a new habit or a new eating habit in this particular instance, or any habit, we bring it into our awareness. What we then need to do is pay attention. By paying attention, you are sending bioelectrical signals down these new neural pathways and connections you're making. The more attention you pay, the more myelin is actually laid down. That's the superconductor. That means that these biochemical electrical currents are passing really, really quickly. And because the brain was made to move us, it's also about an intentional action. What is the action you are going to take? We can think, and we have all done it. You can think forever, but unless you take that first action, you're not going to start wiring the new neural pathway. Once you start doing that, it takes 66 days to lay down a new habit. It also takes 265 days to make that automatic. So it's about having an intention. It's about paying attention so that you're really being mindful. You're one of the great new, I don't want to say new, but mindfulness has really come into popular consciousness. Mindfulness is a brilliant way of ensuring that you start rewiring and actually leveraging the neuroplasticity, and then you have a new habit. So now that we know the mechanics, this neuroscience of making a new habit, why are we going to do it, Rena? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Maria. This is absolutely brilliant. And actually, let me stay with the start for a second before I take you through the concept that we're talking about, creating new habits, and perhaps offer you an opportunity while you're listening to this recording or watching us live, is to pick up a particular habit and see how it might turn out for you if you were to use the formula that we're going to be sharing with you in just a minute. But before that, let me underline a couple of points just to evoke that sense of building awareness, intention that Maria was talking about. Is that when we're talking about creating healthy habits, and we all perhaps need to create some healthy habits. I know I do. When I hear something as simple as drink more water, and I often ask myself the question, am I drinking enough water? And the question is no. So I'm quite aware of it, and yet I happen to slip on it time and again, right? So to really kind of stand back and think, what are those habits that I could bring about that could make a difference to my life? Because as we were talking about, as Maria was talking about, that while food is to do with the physical element of fitness, we can see how it's wrapped up on the whole mental, on the whole spiritual and emotional element of personal fitness. Because, even the brain is, made up of water maximum. And so therefore you need to give it water just to regenerate it. So the science behind it is kind of really calling out to us to looking at creating more healthy eating habits. Or even the question to just reflect for a second, what am I hungry for? What is it that I'm really looking for when I'm going towards food? Is it because I'm stressed, so I'm looking for a comfort break? Is it because I want a social connection? Is it because I want to distract myself from something? Or is it really to pay attention and see that the food that we eat and chew nourishes us and give full attention to the food that we're eating? If you go back to the whole ancient wisdom of Ayurveda that Maria kind of touched upon when she talked about the concept of mindfulness, which kind of comes from the world of meditation, it really talks about body types. So when we're talking about diet and listening to our body and lifestyle, very simply the science behind it, and we've talked about these concepts in part one, so I'd encourage you to have a look at part one as well, that how a body is made out of the 5 elements. And your body type could be different to mine because of the combination of those elements. And when there's a disbalance, it creates a certain hunger inside us, which might be food hunger, or there might be other kinds of hunger as well, which leads to habits which might not be the best, right? So therefore, we want to create habits, and we want to create healthy eating habits and create new habits. create powerful habits. And why is it that we want to do it? Why is it that you and I sometimes want to create those habits which are new and different? Because we want breakthrough results. There's something that we're wanting and we find that we're not getting it. And when we hear about these habits or get aware of certain habits, we wish we had those habits, because it could help us bring about those breakthrough results, whether in our life, in our job, in our career, in our personal life. It could be any place that those habits could make a difference. And in fact, that's what we're going to be sharing with you, a formula which you can use not just for healthy eating habits, but any habits for that matter, so that you can start experiencing joys and world of neuroplasticity. So I'm just going to put out on this slide certain, lists that are there of winning habits. And you would have seen a lot of these. You just need to Google it. I want to bring it to the point that you can literally Google winning habits, and those 5 that you can see on the top right corner kind of just come up on the Google, when you're doing a search engine. Or when you look on the left-hand side and you look at the book that was written by Stephen Covey, who talked about the 7 habits of highly effective people. Or even when we've been talking today, we've been talking already about some of these concepts between part 1 and part 2, again, not as a diet program, but as fundamental habits that we might have that might make us feel healthier. Drink more water, eat more fresh fruit and vegetable, reduce sugar and salt, eliminate processed food, manage portion size. Is any of this rocket science to any of us? No, it isn't. Look at any of the other lists. Is any of those that you read and you think, wow, that's something that I wasn't aware of? Chances are not. So we really know what has to be done, but somehow we are falling through the cracks about creating that new winning habit or creating a new habit. So here's a very simple formula that I'm going to take you through it. But before that, we really need to understand a fundamental to reframe how we're looking at creating new habits. So in the whole world of coaching that Maria and I work about, and we're talking about the concept of neuroplasticity, how you do it is to reframe, because there is a neurological pathway, but you're creating a new neurological pathway, which means that you're reframing or re-looking at the problem or challenge or opportunity that is there in front of you. So Vince Lombardi, I don't know whether many of you know about this particular gentleman, no longer there with us, but in the mid-1900s, NFL, National Football League coach, known for being the coach for the Green Bay Packers, known for a single determination to win, won 3 or 4 Super Bowls. I quite not remember, but he made a very interesting comment out there saying winning is a habit. Unfortunately, so is losing. And human beings are creatures of habit. It goes back to that point about neurological pathways. We are, because that's how we are wired, or that's how we got wired as we were growing up. That's the science behind it. So even not having a habit is a habit. Not doing something is a habit. So you need to crack the code and create something new, because we are all, creatures of habits in itself. So that's one fundamental thing that I want you to just look at the issue when you're talking about creating a new habit, is that there is a habit right now. And you talk about breaking that habit and how you might do it. One formula has just been shared with you by Maria, and I'm just going to unpack that a bit more. So I'm going to invite you to go through the habit formula. It's really simple. We talk about habits, and there's a formula called the habit formula that I've created for you to consider. And maybe you might want to think about any new eating habit that you might have picked up thus far, and work with me in the next few minutes as I take you through the formula, or indeed pick up some other habits you want to do. I mean, I listed out a slide there. There might be other habits that you've been wanting to do for some point of time. Think about it. Give yourself the luxury of 10 seconds thinking about what could be that habit that I might create that could bring about breakthrough results in my life right now, that could make a real difference. And it might be in the realm of healthy eating, which is what we've been talking about, or it might be something else. But pick up one, and it could be a small habit, but just to kind of work through the thinking process, because that's how you'll start reframing and creating a new neurological pathway. So 5 more seconds for you to think that through. 5, 4. All right, okay, let's go for it. So H, have a vision, start with why. We know that Simon Sinek keeps talking about that, right? And many other people have been talking about it. Tell yourself a story. Think about that habit that you've been talking about. Make it really real, that intention and attention that we were talking about in Maria's formula. Have that vision. What is it that a habit is going to help you do? So start thinking about that outcome if you have that habit. So if I was to drink water, I'd feel hydrated. My mind would be much more clearer and alert. I would feel, perhaps maybe in my case, I'd have less water retention problem. There could be a host of outcomes and benefits that you might get because of that new habit that you're creating. And I want you to make that really real in your life, or at least in your mind, to think that through. And there's a neuro angle to that as well. And I'll come to Maria in a second to explain that neuro angle. So I really want that visualization to become really clear in your mind about, what is the benefit I'm going to get? So think about it from a logical, intellectual viewpoint. Then think about it emotionally. How would I feel? Will I be happy? Will I feel fulfilled? Will I feel satisfied? What's the emotion that you're going to feel attached to it? Make it really real. Make that vision come to life. And we all know the power of visualization. And I invite you really to look at the science behind it. And while I might make it into a big concept right now, think about this as a formula. Each time you follow this formula, it will help you create a new habit. So H is having that vision and making it really, really clear in your life. Maria, can I come back to you very quickly to share the whole concept of how this visualization helps the brain?
So with visualization, the brain loves the fact that if we picture something, that they say a picture paints 1,000 words. In terms of the brain, it gives us the place to go to. The brain doesn't always need to know the route. It needs to know the endpoint. And when we visualize something, we are not only activating our imagination, which is a huge part of the brain, but we're also bringing in the occipital system, which is one of the biggest, actually longest parts of the brain, because it goes from my eyes all the way back to my brain, the back of my brain and my brain stem. And the thing being, the more we visualize something and the more we attach emotions to it, because 90% of brain function is dictated by how we feel. How we think comes later and is incredibly important, but it's always initially how we feel. So this really aligns with the Stephen Covey Genius book, which says, start with the end in mind. This is your end in mind. Where do I want to get to? How does it feel? Those two things allow all of the neurological connections to start really laying down. They open the sense of opportunity. The brain loves to problem solve. Its first job is to keep you alive, but its second job is to problem solve. You give it a great vision that is very, very furnished with color and feeling. It's going to find a way to get there. The brain loves to do that.
Thank you so much. So I hope you have now got a clarity for a few minutes while we were talking, to have a vision about why that habit that you chose would really help you out in your life, and you've been able to give your mind and the brain the space to actually visualize it and make it real. So already you have begun on the journey of creating a new habit, and that's why this is fundamentally important as step one. Because your brain is now already trying to problem solve and get you to that space that is visualized, and just felt those wonderful hormones of serotonin and oxytocin bubbling through your body when you visualized it, right? So the journey has begun in a new habit, and fundamentally an important first step. So that's your H, have that vision. Then A, think about this topic. This is really important and often a game changer when I'm working with people on breaking old habits or creating new habits. Now, Wayne Diner is an individual who does a lot of work on self-development and spiritual growth, actually. And he makes the statement, and there are many such statements, but I'm bringing this up just to raise our awareness because we already know this. So it's really picking up some of these quotes. And he makes a statement about saying, you leave old habits behind by starting out with the thought, I release the need for this in my life. And what is he really talking about? So remember, I made that statement about creating a habit is also breaking a habit, because there's a habit that's already existing. So not doing certain things is actually bringing about some joy or benefit to us. And it becomes vitally important to become aware about what that benefit might be. So if I'm not drinking water, for example, it might be just because, I don't know, I don't have to make the effort to remember. Maybe that's the benefit that's there. So I can just carry on and work tirelessly on my laptop for hours, or do something that I like to do, but not be bothered about taking a break and having that glass of water. Maybe that's the benefit. Maybe the benefit is, as some of my friends say, that, when you drink too much of water, you're visiting the washroom a lot, the ladies' room a lot, and that's a distraction in itself when you're at the workspace. I don't know, maybe that's the benefit. But what the fundamental point is to bring that clarity in your brain about, why is it that I have another habit right now existing in my life, which is stopping me from creating this new habit? And once that becomes crystal clear in your life, and I invite you to think about that habit that you were wanting to bring up right now in your life, and think, what is that advantage or benefit or gift that I'm giving to myself by not having that new habit? And almost to bring that forefront in your mind. And as Wayne is talking, give a version about, I release the need to have that in my life. So I release the need to not distract myself from my work and do something which is fundamentally more water, which is go grab a glass of water. Now I'm picking up a small idea or a small example, but you can see what it does. It unlocks the brain into really finding out the reason why should you be going for another habit. Because often we try to go for another habit, but the brain is resisting at a subconscious level because there's a benefit already existing from not having that particular habit. So you need to be really aware about asking yourself, why not? What's the benefit that I'm getting? So that's the second thing that I invite you to think about when you're creating a new habit, or creating a new healthy habit, or indeed the example that you're working with me right now, I hope. So that's your A. Then we come to B, which is all about being kind to yourself. Louise Hay, I love the statement that she kind of makes out here. And again, a lady who works a lot on healing and positive psychology. Sorry for the spelling of psychology, but I'm sure you know how that is spelled. And she makes a statement about saying, remember, you have been criticizing yourself for years and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourselves and see what happens. Isn't this so true? We don't manage to create, we want to create a new habit. I'm going to wake up at 7 o'clock every morning and do my yoga stretches. I will drink water 10 times, 10 glasses of water in a day. I will make sure that I prioritize and do what's important to me. And then we don't create that new habit. And then we say, oh, that's terrible. I'm terrible. I can never do it. And then we're criticizing ourselves, and the gremlin inside us, as we talk about, that inner critic inside us raises its head and says, not good enough. You're not good enough. You can't do it. And so the voices inside you come up, and which keeps you away of saying, why bother? Because you tried for the last 1 month to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, or to drink water and you couldn't, or prioritize and you couldn't. So don't bother trying again, because you're going to fail. So the gremlins and the assumptions inside your brain, inside your mind, inside you come up. And therefore, you might stop yourself, because it is something new that you're creating, right? It is a new habit. So you really need to kind of be kind around it. And often the example that I share with people when I'm talking about this concept, which is so real in my life, is when I had picked up yoga after a break. So I used to do a lot of yoga when I was a child. And it was quite a fundamental part of our life in India, actually, in schooling, to do yoga, and not surprisingly, because it's so relevant out there. And then I took a long break in my life, and I brought yoga back in my life a few years ago. And I'd gone for a yoga camp. And the yoga teacher was there, and it was a group session that was taking place. And they said, all right, he said, bend your waist, touch your toes, and engage the thigh muscle, and flex. Engage the thigh muscle, brain to thigh muscle. No connection happening out there. What thigh muscle is he talking about? How are people engaging it? No connection. Just could not get it, right? And that's what it is when you're trying to create a new habit. Because when you're trying to create a new neurological pathway, your brain just doesn't connect, because there is no connection. There is no synapses that are circuitry out there. So it was very difficult for me to do it. But with practice, and I was there for 2 weeks, with practice, I did manage to engage that thigh muscle and make that move and stretch. And by the end of the 14 days, I was beginning to benefit from that pose as well, right? Creating a new habit is exactly that. So be kind in that journey. You're learning something new, so you need to break that resistance that you have because you're getting a benefit of not doing the habit, and then help yourself through that whole journey and be kind to yourself and not criticizing. So that's the third thing that I would think about when you're creating a new habit. So maybe when you've been thinking about that habit right now, maybe you might recognize that you have been criticizing yourself, and to really think about, how can I be kind? What do I tell myself? What's the narrative in my brain when my brain stands up or my gremlin stands up to criticize? What is it that can I tell myself? Can I tell myself, I trust myself, I will find a new way to do it, or I believe in myself, or I'm going to be kind to myself, or it's okay? What's that narrative that should be there in your brain? Because that's important for it to create what we call a circuit breaker when you're trying to reframe and come up with something new as well. So B is being kind. I incentivize. I love this. We all love to incentivize, isn't it? And Gretchen Rubin, who does a lot of work on happiness in human nature, and she runs podcasts which are being heard by millions, says a very simple thing. And again, it's true. You read it there, right? When we give ourselves treats, we feel energized, cared for, and contented, which boosts our self-command. And self-command helps us maintain healthy habits, is what it says out there in that statement. So how are you going to incentivize yourself is the question. When you create those habits, what's the incentive that you might want to give? And think about something that you really want to do. Maybe it's and I would recommend it's not going for that chocolate donut that you were thinking about. The dark chocolate, as we say, is good for the brain, isn't it, Maria?
Indeed, indeed. And also, Rena, you know, the last two slides are so about that fundamental thing. The brain moves away from threat. So if I'm criticizing myself, I'm threatening myself in my internal narrative. And incentivize, that's towards reward. So the thing I would say is, if you love chocolate, make it dark chocolate, then hey, fill your boots. It's good for your brain.
Thank you so much, Maria. Absolutely, absolutely. So you can see how the whole neuro angle, the science behind it, is something that we really encourage people to become aware about when you're looking at really mastering the whole topic of leadership. And leadership is for everyone. Leadership is not about a title in today's day and world, right? It isn't how it was when I was growing up and I saw people who were my elders, and we saw leaders who, because they had a job title. Today, everyone is a leader, and we are leading our own lives. So it's really looking about becoming a leader in your space, and some of these are fundamentally important. So coming back to habits, I is incentivize, really figure out how is it that you're incentivizing yourself to help you kind of in that journey. And the last is T. Tiny steps is something which is so important when you're creating a new habit. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been hearing this recording, up to now, none of what we're saying is something which is really rocket science. Maybe a few elements have been something which have created a few aha moments for you. But at the end of the day, this is fundamentally important. Colin Powell, we all know who he is from the US. And he makes a statement again, just to bring it to life for us, that if you're going to achieve excellence in big things, you develop the habit in little matters. So if I want to drink 10 glasses of water a day, should I say, bang, first day I'm going to do 10 glasses of water and then not hit the target and then say, oh my gosh, and the criticism comes in? Or should I start off by saying, maybe I'm going to have 3 glasses of water? Maybe I'm just going to be aware how many glasses that I drink. Tiny steps to begin with, because that helps you then reframe and doesn't feel so overwhelmingly big. Some of the biggest goals that are achieved are through those tiny steps. When people are climbing Mount Everest, while they know the goal is Mount Everest, what's their goal? The next step that they're taking. That's how you break it up when you're trying to reach a massive goal. And therefore that new habit is something which is quite important and quite relevant on that one as well. So what are the tiny steps that you can take when you've been thinking about that habit? Hopefully you have been. If not, we invite you to think about a habit and try out these formulas, because these are formulas that are tried and tested. Maria and I work with our clients on these formulas and it works. So why not experiment? That's what we invite you to do this particular morning. So breakthrough results, just to kind of coming back, habit is all about having a vision, asking why not, being kind, incentivizing, and tiny steps that you can make before you can move on. And we are absolutely confident, 100% confident, that if you were to try this formula, it would help you out. So try it out, share it with your teams, share it with your friends and family members, because some of them might be looking at a particular aspect, but not the other aspects of creating a habit, so that they can get breakthrough results. So 2 formulas that we've shared with you today: habit and intention, attention, and identified action, all of them helping you create new habits and hopefully new healthy habits. I'm just going to pause there for a second, invite Maria back again to make any comments on the habit formula or indeed anything else that might have triggered off while she was listening to what I was sharing.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rena. I think one of the things that really comes out to me is the small steps, because once you have achieved something small, the brain gets a real boost of dopamine because you've done something. And then it gives you that motivation to do the next small thing. And as you so rightly said, the longest journey, the highest journey, the hardest journey starts with the first step. And, you know, at the moment we're watching the Olympics. There are people, they didn't start off. You know, I was a gymnast. I cannot believe some of the moves and the sequences, but you don't start that way. You start with the smallest of forward rolls, and then you get to where they are now. So as Rena said, think about a habit and try out these things and then give us feedback. We know the work works. It does with our clients. It would be great if you were to just message us, or we actually have our contact details on the next slide. Get hold of us. Let's see if this works, because you've taken some time to be with us and we are very, very grateful. And it's been lovely to spend time with you. So let's know if what we have been talking about this morning has made a really big difference in a small way in your world.
Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you, all of you, for being with us this morning or listening to the recording, whether it was a part of it or the full recording. Really appreciate you being here. We are absolutely passionate about working with people, help them then achieve their full potential, helping them be who they really want to be and who you deserve to be. And we know that is a lot more than what we are. As one of our coaching principles are, we are all greater and wiser than we think we are. We know you are. And hopefully some of these are going to give you some ideas and insights on how you can achieve breakthrough results and be more of who you are and lead yourself, your teams, your communities to greater success with greater passion, with greater fulfillment. That's our aim and objective. This is TBQ Live, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be coming back to you in September, talking about a few of the other levers, and we'll all be talking about how we can raise awareness. Maybe we're going to invite a few friends over to have this conversation with us on TBQ Live. If you would like to be part of TBQ Live in any shape or form, or perhaps have a suggestion or questions, we'd love to address it. Remember, all we really want to do is go on the science and art of leadership. Thank you very much for being here. For now, it's goodbye. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely month ahead. In UK, it's holiday time, but wherever you are, we wish you safety. We face you well, and we will see you back again soon. Bye for now.
Bye for now.